Welcome back to the fourth and final night of the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago, Illinois. I'm Austin Pelli for FedNetTV, here with Caroline McGraw, New York Delegate for the DNC. How you doing today, Caroline?
I'm doing pretty well, Austin. How are you?
I'm doing great. So we all hear about delegates, but many of our viewers don't really know what delegates do. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about the process to become a delegate and what are some of your key roles?
Yeah, so being a delegate is more ceremonial at this point in time, but during primary elections, alongside of the the Democratic nomination candidate, will be a slate of delegates for each of them. Nowadays, being a delegate is mostly just officially nominating the candidate at the conventions every year.
Okay, and so there's been some talk about undecided delegates. Could you explain what happens with that process and what that really means?
An undecided delegate is someone who doesn't necessarily support the candidate. So sometimes, since you can also vote for delegates in the primary, sometimes someone else might be voted for over the delegates for a specific presidential nominee. So, but this year, I think it's because Kamala wasn't our original nominee that some people are just skipping their vote or writing in someone else.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, makes some sense. And we are 3 days past the DNC with the fourth and final night to come tonight with Kamala Harris' acceptance speech to come officially. So what are you hoping to hear from Harris as her key talking points for tonight?
I think she'll stick to the main key talking point she's had. Everyone has had all week, and she's had it in rallies coming up to this week, which are abortion rights, gay rights, just basic equality, and really her nomination and her run for president is based on making sure every American has full freedom in this country. And I think that's what her main talking point will be about tonight.
Okay, and this convention has been full of prominent figures, the likes of Michelle and Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, the Clintons, Oprah, and many more. Who has stood out to you in particular with their speech and in support for Harris?
I think Michelle Obama had the best speech so far. We'll see how it goes, but Michelle Obama is a phenomenal public speaker. Every time I have ever seen a video of her speaking or heard her, it just really goes right down to the heart.
And Oprah was a surprise guest, right?
It was a huge surprise. I had no clue, and I've been getting like inside scoops.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were up here and had no idea, and we heard Oprah Winfrey, please welcome Oprah Winfrey to the stage, and all of a sudden, people started flooding to the banister to get a look at her.
People were looking under their seats if they had car keys.
I know. Yeah, we were saying that she should have said, "Everyone, look under your seat. You get a vote. You get a vote. You all get votes." But let's bring it back to you for a second here. But even though you're only 23 years old, this is not your first convention. You were a delegate in 2020 as well, with COVID adding a substantial hiccup to that process of the national conventions. How has this time around at the DNC differed, and what was that delegate process like in this virtual 2020?
It's differed substantially, obviously. In 2020, it was all virtual. The caucus and council meetings that take place in the morning were webinars hosted on Zoom. The main voting was through a form site, I think. Okay. I'm not sure how they set it up, but the main pledging or vote for the nominee and everything was all online. It wasn't even through a Zoom call until like the very end, when it was just a webinar that was also shown on TV where the state representatives announced their state's votes.
Were any of them like New York, who do you vote for? And then like New York, could you please unmute for a second?
No, there was, I believe they had a full setup for every state going on, and okay. Every state's representative was in some place that really shows what their state is, a monument or whatever, and they said New York, who are your votes, and they would announce it.
Nice. And that was in 2020.
Yeah.
Back when you ran against 28 opponents for the delegate position. But yet for 24, you ran unopposed. So you must have impressed some people high up in the New York delegation to get that position unopposed.
I believe I had so many. I'm not sure. I didn't even know the number of delegates that were running in 2020 until you told me just now. But I believe that those were delegates for other candidates in 2020 for Joe Biden, and Joe was the only one on our primary this year. So it was just our slate from our area pretty much.
Gotcha. So New York has had some very prominent speaking slots with Hochul, Schumer, Jeffries, among others. How is the pride in the New York delegation to have these public figures so highly regarded at the DNC?
Hochul, Schumer, and Jeffries are just massive political powers just across the country pretty much. If you know anything about politics, I feel like you know their names. And just New Yorkers in general are very proud of them, even outside of being at the DNC. I think they were all amazing when they spoke here. And we all have a lot of pride in them. There was massive cheers going out from our section whenever they got on stage and pretty much at every point.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all just amazing people. And pretty much, I personally have met all of them prior to this convention. And I think a good majority of our delegates have as well. And they're just amazing people. So.
Mm-hmm. And Caroline McGraw, hailing from the Catholic University of America, roll cards. I'm wondering if you could talk really quick about towing the line between voting blue and identifying as a Catholic. I'm sure that some friends and family and acquaintances maybe don't understand that intersection like you may practice it.
Well, I personally am involved in a Catholics Vote for Democrats organization called Catholics Vote Common Good. And we have done a few panels here at the DNC, and the whole organization is about just Catholics and talking to other Catholics about why they vote Democrats. I personally think a lot of candidates like Kamala Harris, even though she might not be a Catholic herself, has a lot of the same viewpoints and morals that I do, and that my morals align more with the Democratic Party, in my opinion. But I don't think faith has a party, whatever you think. But I think the Catholic faith does align more with our current candidates than it does with Donald Trump.
So it's more of a candidate instead of a party, you would say?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And as we've heard many times and through the last several days, there are only 74 days and a good morning before the election day is around. And as Walz says, you can sleep when you're dead. We've got some pushing to do here. So what do you think are the most important things for the party to focus on in that short timeline?
I think that we just need to focus on ourselves and honestly let Donald Trump and J.D. Vance dig themselves into the hole they already have made. I think that we just keep pushing our main lines and just really show who we actually are. I think they're doing a phenomenal job introducing Tim Walz on a national stage. Some people may have known him prior to him being nominated or even talked about being put on the slate with Kamala. But I personally didn't know who he was prior. And I think they're just showing who he is and that he's an amazing person, and they're doing the same with Kamala and a lot of the congressional members that are also up for re-election or election. And I think they just need to keep pushing what they are about, what they support, and who they actually are. And we don't really need to fight dirty in this election, I think. I think just being themselves and getting out there. All the volunteers are getting out there already for Kamala and their congressional members and whoever. I think that's what we need to do for pretty much the entire time till Election Day.
And one last question here for maybe some young ladies across America who look to you as inspiration. Getting in politics is the second time around as a delegate, as a young woman here at the DNC. It requires a significant amount of time commitment. There were some long days, some very late nights, as we both know. So what advice would you have for those people who are interested in becoming a delegate?
I think you just have to be committed. You have to be committed to whatever party you would be a delegate for, to the candidate. And if you really believe in what you're supporting and what you're doing, it doesn't feel like such a time commitment. The Democratic National Convention has been so much fun for me, just going to all the caucus meetings, being here every night, even if it is a long time. It's been phenomenal.
Caroline McGraw, New York delegate for the DNC, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, and we hope you have a great rest of the convention here.
You as well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Austin Pelli, FedNetTV from Chicago.